What if you can create your own website by
Tower Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo ready at runway 20 south departure.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo winds 272 at 4. Departure to the south approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 20.
Cleared for takeoff runway 20 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
click capture, and Scribe automatically takes screenshots and writes the step-by-step.
Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, continue for south departure.
It's done. You're welcome.
How did you?
Scribe. Now go home.
Okay.
Work smart, not hard. Scribe.
Purina conducts over 100,000 quality checks every day. Which means you only have to check for one thing. The Purina
Beechcraft
name
Golf
on your...
Sierra Kilo, please acknowledge. Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo, leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
Tower Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo frequency change.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done in a list view. Next, I set a priority and a due date to keep things on track. I create custom statuses to order.
Get real-world experience for the world of music and audio at Full Sail University. Recording, producing,
Now we gotta go help people customize and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual.
Maybe where's the golf cart?
Okay, if there's one AI site builder you need to meet, it's this dope tech from Wix. Now this whole flow is a conversation, so your words actually build your website. I'm going for a store. And after a free-flowing conversation, I get this detailed site brief. And just like that, my first draft is ready. Now that's dope. Next, you can really get in there and style it your way. Here's the fun part. You can regenerate this whole thing over and over, or you can tweak something specific, like your layout. Let me describe what I had in mind. Yeah, that's fire. If there was ever a time to speak life into your dreams, it's right now using the Wix AI website builder.
A man who works hard sweats hard.
Old Spice swagger fights sweat, so coach thought I was slacking. So I trained with my Old Spice, and I became the best player ever. Sometimes, a man must overcompensate.
export this PDF? Show me how to find the new hire
Real quick, can you show me how to... If your coworkers are asking you to repeat yourself all the time, you need Scribe. Go.
Every hero needs a sidekick. Get Outplayed and say hello to your free creepy pet. Outplayed auto-records every build, farm, speedrun, or epic fight.
It is Sunday, August 17th, and we are reportedly just days away from a peace deal to end the Ukraine-Russia war for good. Security guarantees have allegedly been agreed to. Strong Article 5-like security guarantees. Tomorrow, an Oval Office meeting will happen between Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump. Trump inviting the big EU powers to attend, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and NATO Chief Mark Rutte, to attend this meeting and help nudge Zelensky in the right direction. The war hawks in DC freaking out, bringing massive pressure to bear to kill the peace process. We're hearing, look, a deal could be days away here. China also furious about this. And big news out of Jackson Hole, coming soon from Jackson Hole. We'll get into that and more stories as well from around the country.
We agreed to robust security guarantees that I would describe as game-changing. We didn't think that we were anywhere close to agreeing to Article 5 protection from the United States, in legislative enshrinement within the Russian Federation, not to go after any other territory when the peace deal is codified. Legislative enshrinement in the Russian Federation, not to go after any other European countries and violate their sovereignty. So we agreed to, there was plenty more.
President Trump using very real political capital to end the Ukraine-Russia war, something you'd think would be popular. Ending a war should be a good thing.
Would this make you buy a Ridge wallet? 2 people could win a Lamborghini Huracan Sterrato, a Hennessy Velociraptor, or $100,000.
Yet in DC, the Ukraine war is like sacrosanct, and Putin's the Antichrist. Anything but a full Russian surrender, just unacceptable, even though nobody has a plan to achieve that. What we're hearing is Russia's prepared to now relinquish pockets of Ukrainian land that they currently occupy in exchange for territory in the east of the country, in the Donbass, land that Moscow has been unable to obtain, unable to capture since the start of the war. Trump telling Sean Hannity after his Putin summit, his Alaska summit, that they discussed land transfers and security guarantees, and that they largely agreed, saying, I think we're now pretty close to a deal. At this point, it's up to Ukraine to get it done. Ukraine now is a starting point for a deal on the table. All they need to do is agree, make some reasonable counteroffers, and this could be done.
There's a lot of points. I mean, a lot of points we're agreed on. There's not that much. There's, 1 or 2 pretty significant items, but I think they can be reached. Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit, but it's up to President Zelensky. I think we are, and if they'd like, I'll be at that next meeting. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelensky and President Putin. And myself, I guess, I didn't ask you about it. Not that I want to be there, but I want to make sure it gets done. And we have a pretty good chance of getting it done.
The media this morning trying to present tomorrow's meeting as an ambush on Trump. That Zelensky invited the EU, the UK, and NATO to help push Trump in the right direction. No, that's not what happened at all. From what I understand, the US and the big EU powers are in agreement here. They're coming to push Zelensky, to nudge Zelensky in the right direction.
You know there's concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming as back. That's not true. No, but that's not that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office meeting in front of television cameras where President Zelensky.
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh no, I know, and I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire
as early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
And President Trump's acting as the mediator, getting Putin and Zelensky to the table with the precondition that both sides understand you're not going to get everything you want. That's not how a deal works. It's not how negotiation works. It's about compromise. That's the job of a mediator. And nobody else has the track record or credibility to get both sides to the table.
Critics of President Trump will say the pomp and circumstance, the red carpet, the warm handshake, that President Trump simply lost that Putin gained there just by being on the world stage and walking down a red carpet with the president. Your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, critics of President Trump are always going to find something to criticize. You don't pay attention to it anymore, but I will tell you this. Putin is already on the world stage. He's already on the world stage. The guy's conducting a full-scale war in Ukraine. He's already on the world stage. So the president has invested a lot of time in trying to bring an end to this war. He deserves credit for doing that. He gets criticism for doing that. He could have just let this war go on. The president could have just said, this is Biden's war. It started under him. We'll do what we can for Ukraine, but we're going to focus on other things. He could have easily said that. But he's the only leader in the world that can get Putin to a meeting to talk about serious things.
If all goes well, it's possible we could be days away, a week away maybe, from the end of the Ukraine-Russia war. Now, that doesn't mean at all that everyone's happy about it. Quite the contrary. There are many unhappy people here, so many interests at play, so many people who benefit from the continuation of this war. The big U.S. military contractors, for instance, breaking in huge cash flows since 2022 because of this war. They have huge contracts now in the works with NATO should this war continue, and you also have China and India who lose huge if this war ends. And we saw it come through loud and clear this morning, using their stooges in the press to argue against peace. U.S. mainstream media arguing for this war to continue. You can't make this up. Watch.
Can you name one thing that President Trump is asking Russia to give up in order to get peace?
And to see how easy it is for Putin to manipulate Trump psychologically by doing these obvious things. Oh, sir, you won overwhelmingly in 2020. And of course, I wouldn't have invaded Ukraine if you were president.
And so I don't have very many positive things to say about him because there aren't really any positive things to say about him. He does, what he's doing is objectively bad for the world.
Keep in mind, the people who have been nonstop all weekend long, the people who have been most critical about Trump's pursuit of peace are the same people who've been wrong for the last 40 years, been wrong about every single foreign policy issue. Whatever these people say, we should just do the opposite. CNN even rolling out Mike Pence, former Vice President Mike Pence, to argue against ending the war.
What do you make of all that? I mean, there are observers out there, people who like Trump, people who are rooting for Trump, who think that Trump got played.
When I travel, I take no chances when it comes to supporting my urinary health. That's why I always pack my Euphora. Euphoria's Drink Mix Flush is my favorite. It's such an easy way to flush my urinary tract, especially when traveling changes up my normal routine. Plus, their Drink Mix Flush has vitamin C to provide immune support, which is a must on vacation.
Well, look, I served alongside the president for 4 years. I know his style in dealing with these dictators. It's the velvet glove, but I think the hammer needs to come, and it needs to come immediately.
Everything now riding on what happens tomorrow. Can Zelensky be nudged in the right direction? He's got a chance to end this war. Will he take it? Let me know what you think. And all of this happening right before the Jackson Hole Economic Symposium. All eyes will be on that meeting. Central bankers from around the world gathering in Wyoming this week. Stephen Moran's appointment to the Fed. Not just any other bureaucratic shuffle, folks. It's the opening shot in what could be the most explosive gold bull market, I believe personally, in our lifetime. Stephen Moran has been crystal clear. A weaker dollar is the path to competitiveness and debt relief. We've been saying this for months on this channel, that the Trump administration under Scott Bessent has been purposely devaluing the dollar. Monetary policy that has turned sharply in gold's favor, and with markets already betting big on a September rate cut, the fuse is now lit. 5 U.S. states have now made gold and silver legal tender, an unprecedented political revolt against fiat currency. And globally, central banks, led by a ferociously aggressive Russia, are buying gold at a pace the world hasn't seen in decades. And the ultimate catalyst, governments are openly discussing a revaluation of gold, repricing it, talking about repricing it higher to instantly strengthen their balance sheets and crush their debt burdens. Again, all eyes will be on Jackson Hole this week. Alright, that wraps up the news portion of this video. Now let me tell you about the sponsor for today, AxCap Ventures, ticker GARLF, which ties directly into everything we've been talking about. I can probably count on one finger the number of companies where management kept buying stock on the open market month after month at a pace that looked more like a takeover battle than ordinary insider accumulation. AxCap Ventures is the one. And in 2025, it's as if they're rewriting the rules on insider conviction, in my opinion. I want to set the stage right off the bat. I am bullish on AxCap Ventures. Since the start of the year, insiders over there have been purchasing over $1.2 million worth of stock, and they're still
those eyes, that nose, your hair.
Hi, my name is Oduber, and let's start with 8-Bit Invaders.
8-Bit Invaders. Remember all the Lovecraftian movies where bodies are merging with each other? You know, like The Thing, The Fly, or Annihilation with Natalie Portman. So if StarCraft and Minecraft were protagonists in such a Lovecraftian movie, 8-Bit Invaders would be the merging result. See, you can always think of something better than just a cliché about
if StarCraft and Minecraft had a baby.
So this is a fast-paced RTS, a very colorful strategy arcade game that it's easy to learn for players of all skill levels. Collect resources, build up and defend your base, amass your army of tanks and starships, and ultimately crush humans with your metal tentacles, or show aliens who's the boss here. You'll find 24 campaign missions, 10 co-op missions to play with your mother-in-law, destructible environments, and you know who the composer is? Frank Klepacki, the same dude who created music for Command & Conquer 27 years ago, when he was 17. Yeah, I will keep repeating this fact, and if you feel that this 8-bit setting is appealing to you, keep in mind that you can also find 2 more games, 8-bit armies that are made with the fans of Command & Conquer in mind, and 8-bit hordes that can be appealing to Warcraft fans. Resident Evil 2. This is a complete remake of a classic game. Overwhelmingly positive review score softly hints that it was a complete success as well. Resident Evil 2 offers a fresh take on a classic survival horror saga with realistic visuals, immersive audio and a new over-the-shoulder camera. You will also get modernized controls on top of gameplay modes from the original game. I can still remember when I played the original game when I was 14 years old, and somehow I had my mental balls big enough to play it every evening after school. Well, on those rare occasions when I actually went to school. I'm a YouTuber not because I was very good at studying, you know, but I was good at games. That's why you should avoid me if you need your appendix surgically removed, but if you want your boredom removed, I'm your guy, that's for sure. Tunguska, The Visitation. This is an isometric survival game that brings you to the dangerous Tunguska exclusion zone, where you will face deadly traps, infectious mutants, bandits, and well-armed rogue military. Game is inspired by the same story as a Stalker, The Roadside Picnic, written by the Strugatsky brothers. Keep in mind that they wrote the story before any serious nuclear accident ever happened, so it's not actually tied to Chernobyl or any other nuclear disaster. Just a post-apocalyptic, gritty and dark Soviet Union filled with unexplainable horrors. Although you can literally describe a casual Soviet Union without any post-apocalypse with the same words. People in the comments are saying that if you like Stalker or Atom RPG games, it's a no-brainer. Also, it has very positive reviews on Steam. Just keep in mind that despite walls of text, looting and side quests, it is an actual twin-stick shooter, and at first may be difficult to control. Although from my own experience, when you get used to it, everything will be fine. Wizard of Legend. This is a fast-paced dungeon crawler with roguelike elements that emphasizes dynamic magical combat. Quick movement and even quicker use of spells will allow you to chain spells together to unleash devastating combos against your puny, pathetic enemies. You will collect valuable spells and relics and build up your magical arsenal to fit your place. style, which, as we all know, is to die again and again and again. You'll find over 100 unique spells and discover various spell combinations and synergies. People on Steam are saying that this is a fun game, although it has some annoying stuff, like getting stun-locked by some basic enemy and losing half of your health. It feels like you are getting robbed by a grandma with a fork or something. Despite that, the game is very well received by players. About 90% of reviews are positive. Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened. If you like Sherlock Holmes and Lovecraftian stuff, this may be your spoon of potato salad. Here you become Sherlock Holmes and find yourself at the heart of terrifying Cthulhu mythos as you investigate a series of mysterious disappearances in Europe and the United States. Those are apparently linked to a dark cult that worships an ancient god. Whatever their plan is, you must put a stop to it, or, face unspeakable consequences. Yeah, all that sounds nice, but can I join the cult? Can I worship the ancient god as well? What if Sherlock decided that his life of investigations is boring and being a servant for a Dagon himself is a more fulfilling experience? I doubt that, but it would be nice if you could actually choose the unexpected way. The Lord of the Rings: Return to Moria. So this is a Lord of the Rings game that focuses on dwarves and their shenanigans. Here you will embark on an adventure to reclaim your legendary home of Moria beneath the Misty Mountains. You can go alone or join forces with other players to survive, craft, build and explore the legendary mines teeming with danger. Here you will mine ore to craft gear and resources. But beware, mining makes noise, and noise created in the quiet deep threatens to awaken the dangers below. Remember when Pippin touched a skeleton and that was kinda enough to awaken Balrog for the second time? Yeah, you want to avoid that. Monsters are just trying to sleep and you are that noisy neighbor everyone hates. Yeah, you are not the good guy. So this open world base building survival crafting game has very positive reviews and you can play it together with your mother-in-law to strengthen your bond.
I can handle the grind, just not cooking. Factor changed that. My life is always busy and dinner is a struggle.
Black Mesa. This is actually a Half-Life, just with better graphics and better, everything. Keep in mind that this is not just a simple remaster, this is a quality remake that expands the scope of the original and massively improves its final chapters. The game is made by fans and it is made so well that it is an owner of overwhelmingly positive reviews. And to be honest, today Black Mesa is the best way to experience Half-Life. No clunky old school graphics, no compatibility problems, great gameplay and a really interesting suspenseful story. To say short, Half-Life is awesome, and Black Mesa may be the greatest way for you to play it. People on Steam are saying that Black Mesa is one of the best remakes ever made, and the game doesn't give you any reason to disagree with these wise words. Monster Hunter Rise. This is originally a Nintendo Switch game released back in 2021. Now we have this action-soaked game on Steam as well, and this version is obviously upgraded to meet our expectations. You will rise to the challenge and become a hunter, explore brand new maps and use a variety of weapons to take down fearsome monsters. That's what developers say, but I would change the word fearsome to airy-fairy, because those monsters are anything but fearsome. Although they are beautiful, I can't deny that. Each monster you hunt will provide materials that allow you to create new weapons and ammo. You can also upgrade your existing gear so you can go back on the field and hunt even more airier and fairier monsters and earn even better rewards. Of course, all of that is presented in 4K resolution with ultra-wide monitor support and unlocked frame rate. Bendy and the Dark Revival. The second part of Bendy and the Ink Machine was released 5 years after the success of its predecessor, and surprisingly it is even more loved by the puzzle and horror fan. first lot. On Steam it is close to an overwhelmingly positive title, and that is a thing you cannot ignore. Here you will play as Audrey as she explores the depths of a creepy animation studio that's gone completely mad. Just like your alcoholic Uncle Steve, who believes that Earth is in the shape of a vodka bottle. Yeah, flat earthers are such a thing of the past. Anyway, he will combat ink-tainted enemies, solve puzzles, and evade an ever-lurking ink demon while seeking your way back to the real world. You never know who or what is going to be around the next corner in this crazy realm of shadows and ink. Like in the first part, you'll have to discover the truth, escape the studio, and above all, fear the ink demon, and survive the wonderful game for your spooky evenings. Coral Island. Here you leave the big city life and business in Tokyo Metropolis and start a new life on Coral Island. Sounds like a thing most of us would want in reality, until you realize that farms like that are smelly and filled with creepy crawlers everywhere you look. Nearby grocery store.
It's not a hobby. It's your empire.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done.
Liberia Tower Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo is 9 miles north 2,700 feet with India to land.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo Liberia Tower. Altimeter 29.9 wind 272 at 4. Enter left base runway 25.
Make left base runway 25 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
Get real-world experience for the world of music and audio at Full Sail University. Recording, producing,
7 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo. Goodbye. Liberia Ground Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo request taxi to the gate.
Beechcraft Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Kilo taxi to gate 4 via taxiway cross runway 07.
Taxiing to gate 4 via taxiway cross runway 07 Beechcraft Golf Sierra Kilo.
That's great, but can you ask your friend to stop digging into the green?
I can ask, but he's not going to. Only pay for what you need.